Welcome to Tea and Buns, everybody. This is the last Tea and Buns of the year, so you are most welcome, and I'm really excited about this session. Tea and Buns is a community of practice where we invite you all to come along and share and talk and discuss issues and research and things that are going to make the world a better place. That's what this is all about. So you're most welcome to join us. In fact, if this is your first time to Tea and Buns, can you just put a 1 in the chat? Let me just see how many of you are here for the first time. So just put a 1. Awesome. So we've got some people here for the first time. And if you've been here before, just put like 2 or how many times you've been this year. Because I know that we've got people who've been here a few times. Great. So we've got some people who've been a few times this year. Awesome. And I know that some people, in fact, a lot of people watch the recordings. So we are recording today. So just to let you know that we are recording today, please mute your microphone when you're not talking, but you're very welcome to come off mute as well. We also love to see your faces. The camera's on is awesome. We don't mind if you're drinking or eating. This is just as if we were around the table and talking to each other. But obviously the chat box is a great way to communicate with each other as we're talking as well. So please feel free to chat in the chat box. And yeah, we're just going to use really respectful and loving language today. This is all a positive session, and I'm so excited to have Julia with us today to help us kick off this conversation about entrepreneurship and female entrepreneurship. And I've got a load of questions that I'm going to fire at Julia, so I'm just super keen to get into this. So the first thing I'd like to do is just acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that we're all meeting on today, and acknowledge that these lands have always been places of learning and teaching and yarning. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and future. All right. Well, I thought that, oh my goodness, it is less than a month before Christmas. Did you kind of get that? It's like the 26th. It will be Boxing Day in a month's time. That's a little bit scary, isn't it? And I thought we would just kick off with a couple of little teasers for you, just to get you thinking. And the first question that I've been asking myself a lot recently is, what is it like when I'm at my best? How should I be thinking or feeling or acting when I'm at my best? Because that kind of gives me a bit of clue when I'm not acting at my best, okay, or thinking or feeling at my best. So why don't you all, I invite you, you don't have to, but I'm inviting you to put in the chat, what are you thinking or feeling when you're at your best? Have a little reflection. Give me a word or two. What is it that you're feeling? Oh, I love that, Linda. Connected, safe, thriving. Oh my gosh, optimistic. Oh, I love that. Everything is possible. Joy. Oh my gosh, I feel amazing already. Positive, productive, passionate, alert, but peaceful. Oh my goodness, I just love that. That's already making me feel amazing. Brave. Oh, Leanne. Yes. Wow. I just think that it's such a powerful question to kind of reflect on and think about, you know, what does our best look like? And it doesn't mean, I just didn't know, running around 24/7, doing a million things, you know, getting stressed. No. You know, when we're at our best, we're peaceful and joyful and just brave. That doesn't mean rushed off our feet and not being able to, you know, cope with everything. So I really love that concept of how am I operating when I'm at my best? And the other question that I think is always really good to do towards the end of the year is actually to think about, how would we describe this year positively? Because I'm sure we've all had a lot of challenges and a lot of things going on in our life that we could kind of, you know, focus on, which aren't so positive. But let's just see if we can describe some of our, you know, year in positive terms. What's been happening to you, for you? Oh my gosh, I can't keep up with the chat. This is awesome. reflective, grateful, courageous, happy, positive, active, reconnection, moving forward. Oh my gosh, I love that. Creative, insightful. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. It's so important for me, I think, that when I am feeling rushed and stressed and like, oh my gosh, it's coming to the end of the year, you know, am I going to tick all those boxes? Am I going to feel, you know, fulfilled? And it's very, very easy, and it's a trap, I suppose, from our minds, that typically we get caught up in the negativity and go, I didn't do that, I don't feel I did this, you know. But look at what happens in how you feel when you start focusing on the positive things and what you have achieved. And even if it's a little bit of what your goals were, at least you've achieved something. And that connection, creativity, you know, reflective, being grateful, all of those things are very, very good for our mind and our body, because it makes us just do things that, you know, we wouldn't do if we were in that negative mindset. And I really want to tap into Julia's thoughts on all of this in a minute. But I was really keen to hear what you were all thinking this morning. So thank you for just participating in that and just having a reflective time before we get into these questions. So Julia, I'm going to maybe swing this question over to you actually. Because you've had a very busy year, I meant to say. You have founded the Xfactor Collective a few years ago, so you've been really building what your enterprise and what you've been doing and working with clients. In fact, you've had over 20 years of experience in this sector and entrepreneurship, and you've been doing lots of other things with philanthropy and study and research. I know that there are so many things that you've been doing. So tell me about yourself, and how do you feel when you're at your best? Have you had a bit of reflection about that this year?
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. It's such an honor, and especially with your last one for the year. It's I think a really beautiful way to spend some time together and just bring a bit of calm into our lives, hopefully, you know, over the next half an hour or so. I just want to acknowledge where I am as well. I'm on the lands of beautiful Bundjalung people in Northern Rivers, New South Wales. So if anyone knows Ballina in New South Wales, that's where we're now based. But I'm a Gippsland girl, and big shout out to those in Gippsland and Corin there from Gippsland as well. Listen, Ruth, I've just had the pleasure of working with, you know, hundreds of women now in social change since I, you know, came to the sector, not really knowing very much at all. I had basically just moved back from being in the US, turned up to start a master's in social investment and philanthropy, and sat in a room going, oh my goodness, looking around the room at all of these incredible women. And just really just held on to the reins, and have had such a great time working in the philanthropy sector, the charity sector, social purpose sector, social enterprise. And, you know, I think it's sort of around nearly 15 years now. So I'm pretty lucky really to have the life that I have and live it how I want to live it. You know, me at my best, I was thinking about that. I feel like, like it's kind of like the fire in the belly for me. And I always found it was the thing that sort of united people. It didn't really matter in our sector what people were working on, whether it was climate change or whether it was to do with, you know, the arts or women coming out of prison. The thing that sort of united us all was this sense of the fire in our belly, that we just couldn't not do what we were fired up to do. So for me, when I'm at my best, it just kind of feels like I'm going to burst. When I'm at my best, it's usually where I've just sort of got out of the way of myself, which was something I heard someone say many, many years ago. Just get out of the way of yourself, Julia, and just let yourself be who you are. So usually it's when I kind of just surrender to that and trust myself that things are going to be okay, that's when, you know, I sort of feel like I'm really at my best. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us this morning a little bit about what you've learned over these years of working with so many women. and so many entrepreneurs and what they're trying to do. And I really want to focus our questions maybe around something called Ikigai. I don't know if everybody's heard of Ikigai. Do you know this concept, everybody? All right, cool, Georgia. Well, Ikigai is a Japanese concept, and I'm not an expert in it, but I've been really interested in what it means and the concept behind it. And Ikigai, it's two words apparently, Iki and Gai. And Iki means life and Gai means purpose. And the concept is that this is when all of these things are met, you are living in bliss or peace. Okay, so when your passion and your purpose and your calling and what's good, you're also working for what's good for society and meeting human needs. When these things collide, that is when you feel at your best. And so I really love this concept, because when we really understand these things and know that wealth comes, or money, funding, whatever it is in terms of money, because we do need money to live, and we want businesses because we want money, but that comes as a product of this. So this is where we need to focus, and then the money will come. Okay, hopefully that's the theory, right? So I really want to just tap into maybe this concept with you, Julia, and sort of say, if this Ikigai, this concept brings us joy and inspires us to, really get out of bed every day and have this fire in our belly, as you've been talking about, why is it so important, do you think, for women and especially women entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs? Because I know that some of you are working within your organization and are intrapreneurs, like Christina and other people who are working in an organization and are intrapreneurs. So tell us, Julia, what your thoughts are on this. Is this important for women today?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ruth. Just picking up on the entrepreneur notion as well, I think, just the whole notion of entrepreneur and intrapreneur as what I just sort of look at is just problem solving. We're all just looking at the problems that we can see and coming up with ideas and theories on how we might shift some of those and create some change. So it's really great that we embrace wherever that type of activity is happening, whether we're creating it as founders ourselves or whether we're creating it within an environment of another organization, which is equally powerful. So yeah, listen, this one's a good one. I love this, and I love that you're bringing this up at this time of the year, Ruth, as well, because I think going into summer, like how we go into this time to actually sort of rest, and for many people to have a bit of time to recover from the year and then sort of reconnecting to ourselves. And I think this is a beautiful tool to connect back into. And I know that you've got some other links and the TED Talk as well, which might be really nice for people to take with them from today. I love this notion of joy. And I love, when you talk to someone about something that they founded or started many, many years ago, and you see in them that joy come up through their body and just out in their words and what they're saying. And the best example of that I had and was guided by was my mother-in-law, who died at the start of this year. And I've been surrounded by very entrepreneurial women my whole life, and sort of look back and I just think it's normal that women just sort of get up and see what needs to change and go and make it happen, because that's what we have all of those superpowers to do it. So I just think we just do it very naturally. But my mother-in-law started Hazel's Way in Sydney many, many years ago, 40, 50 years ago, which went on to become Weight Watchers in Australia. And whenever she would talk about it over the last 10 years to me, this true sense of joy would just burst through her body when she talked about it. And it was 40 years ago that she was actually in that joy. And so when I sort of think back about that, for me, I think probably joy is actually our anchor. And it's actually that sort of that weighty sensation and that weighty feeling that actually keeps us really centered and not drifting too far. And the other thing I sort of think about this as well, is that it's that joy that actually keeps us in the present moment. I'm fortunate that I grew up with a mum who was interested in psychology and was a counsellor, and then I went on to marry one. So I've actually, really interested in sort of mental health, probably as a byproduct of being a daughter and married to one. But what I've sort of like looked at as well over the years is, how does this idea of joy being an anchor keep us in our present moment, in today, where we are right now. For me, it's 10:20 on a Friday, right here, and not thinking too much about last week or yesterday or, what's happened this year, or too far in the future as well. And sometimes I sort of remind myself that, if I stay too far in the past, that's where I'm actually, some of the sads might start kicking in. And if I go too far into the future, into the what if space, then that's where I see like sort of anxiety sort of starts to sort of rear its head. And so I find, for me personally, and I see in women around me, as much as we can sort of stay in that centered place and centered within ourselves, we can actually stay out of some of that anxiety, fear space that can creep in, and maybe some of the sads that can creep in as well. And I think that that's really important, especially when we're when we're trying to sort of like birth and test and refine, new ideas, to make our community safer and better.
Yeah, look, I love that, Julia. And I'd be really interested, though, from people on the call today about the reality of being able to do that when you have multiple identities. Because I know myself, I work, I'm a mother, I'm a volunteer, I'm a daughter. I have many identities in my life. And to juggle all of that can sometimes create some of that stress and anxiety as well. And I would love to know, do you feel as women on this call, and I know we've got a couple of guys as well, would love to know your thoughts about, your identities. And so are you able to have that sort of presence and bring yourself to that kind of concept is, how am I doing as a mum right now? How am I doing as an employee right now? How am I doing as an entrepreneur or founder right now? Is it possible to do that? Or what are some of the sort of thoughts that you might have, Julia, on how we can do that when as women we often have these multiple identities that we're juggling?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And a couple of the people that I know here that are with us and thinking about some of the things that they juggle, I think there's this increasingly I'm finding, and, give me a wave if you're finding it as well, is this sort of this in-between land of, my husband lost both of his parents this year. And that's just been, I'm 45 and I'm coming into this new space of what does it mean to lose parents? And I'm looking at my own parents, and I'm looking at my, who I am as the daughter in that dynamic and that relationship. So these ideas of identities and the different hats that I'm wearing, as well as being a mum to an 8-year-old boy, absolutely. I love this topic of identities, Ruth, and I kind of feel that we don't actually probably talk enough about it in the social purpose sector, which is kind of my catch-all phrase for the not-for-profit, charity, social enterprise and philanthropy sector. So I say social purpose sector a lot, but I think it's probably something that we could talk more about. A couple of reflections on this. I know when we caught up last week, I was talking about, the burnout that happens for social change makers and social entrepreneurs, where identities meld together. And I saw something years ago which really blew me away. I was invited to a strategic planning day for, I'm going to call her Nicole to protect her identity, but for a lady I'd met during my master's who was working in Africa, and she was an Australian woman, designed these amazing programs with these African communities. And I was invited to come along as a guest to a strategic planning day. The organisation had been running for 10 years. And it was amazing to sit there with a whole bunch of people that did know Nicole and didn't know Nicole. And I just sort of sat back as a bit of an observer. And what I realised coming out after that and for weeks afterwards was that Nicole's identity was no longer there. after 10 years of running the organisation and, coming back to Australia to raise money, running back to Africa to run the programs, her identity wasn't there. She didn't exist anymore. It was just the identity of the mission of the organisation that existed. And there was so much in this strategic planning day around what did Nicole need within the strategy next, which was pretty much 3 months off to go and sit under a tree and find herself again. But it was beautiful because people were actually talking about what did the organisation need next, but what did Nicole need? And it was actually it was the first time I'd actually really seen someone's identity merge with the organisation in such a huge way. And since then, I've seen a lot of that and sort of, gently try and suggest to people to try and retain their identity, as much as possible, that the identity of what they're trying to do needs to have its own separate identity. And I've had to do that myself the last 2 years, even with the collective, to go, you know what, this might all fall over. COVID and the pandemic might kill all of the efforts of setting up an organisation. And I've got to come to a place and a peace in my heart that might be okay. If it does fall over, it's not about my identity, that's about the organisation. And that might happen. And that's a hard one to come to terms with. But the other thing as well is I learnt this from being a mum to my little 8-year-old champion, Oliver, was when I wasn't carving out space for my different identities. And I realised a couple of years ago that I was either work Julia or I was mummy Julia. And it didn't help in the household that my husband and I would refer to each other as mummy and daddy. I don't know if people do that, where it's just like, go talk to daddy or go and ask mummy about that. And it was like, so my identity as Julia didn't exist in the household. And I realised it when I was finding myself getting really frustrated and angry at my son, at Oliver, because I was still in my work brain. So there was stuff I hadn't finished at work or things I was trying to work on in my head. And he was needing me, as a child, but I was in my work brain, and then I was getting really frustrated and angry at him. And seeing his reaction to me a couple of times of being scared of me actually really kind of jolted me to kind of go, all right, Julia, when you are work Julia, that needs to have its own boundary. When you are mummy Julia, that needs to have its own boundary. And when you are being Julia, which is me on my own, walking on the beach or gardening, then that's Julia. And I even talk now with Oliver about this is Julia time. It's not mummy Julia or work Julia. And yeah, I think that sort of creating the boundaries around the identities has certainly helped me feel calmer when there's, lots of competing demands.
And I think in reflection of myself as well, that it is hard to compartmentalize my life. But on the other hand, I need to stay true and authentic to who I am as a person, because if I'm trying to be a different person at work to a different person at home, the core of me, so this is not, obviously what I'm thinking and trying not to be on the emails all the time when I'm sitting around the dinner table, but I need to find who am I as an authentic person, and because I do become emotional at work, right? And I think to myself, oh my gosh, I'm becoming really emotional. What are people thinking of me? Do they think that I'm, lacking professionalism here? And sometimes at home, I'm like very, come on, So Julia and everybody, do you find it easy to find your authentic self? And still have those boundaries and know who you are at work or who you are at home, but be authentic about who you are, so that you're not afraid to be vulnerable at work and show some emotion, but you're also not afraid to, come on, be a project manager at home, which some of us need to do when we've got a few kids. I'm interested, how do you encourage people to find their authentic self, Julia?
Oh, listen, I think it's just sort of building that awareness of who we are, and just been having the time to understand who we are. And I think that sometimes we run out of time and space to just reconnect back to ourselves. And I really think this pandemic has allowed us to be a lot more real. I think, the way I'm talking with you here now and, in a room full of mostly people I haven't met before, like I feel really comfortable just to be real and really honest. I think the pandemic's really allowed us as a society to do that. So, I'm kind of trying that on like stripping back the layers of me and stripping back what I thought I maybe used to have to be to now just sort of like, actually, I'm just going to be me, and people will either like that or they won't like it, and it doesn't matter.
Thanks to everybody sharing your lovely comments and honesty in the chat as well. I'm really loving to hear that, we're also all trying to find that authentic person, because I think that we then we can flow better if we accept ourselves for who we are. But we're always on this learning curve, aren't we, Julia? And one of the things that I found about entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs is that we love success. We're very driven people. We know what we want to achieve, especially in the nonprofit sector. We have a lot of goals and we have the organization, beaming down on us and saying, what are you achieving? Are you getting your KPIs done? Let me ask you a little bit about the concept of success. And the struggles and the challenges, but also, some solutions for us today around thinking about what is success and how we should view success. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a big one. Geez, Ruth, you could have like a whole series just to these themes. They're so big. Oh, success is a big one, right? Because, I come from a family where I'm not sure if my mum's on the line. I better just check. Sometimes she turns up to these things. No, she's not there. But, I come from a family where my older brother runs a very successful wealth management firm in Australia. And he's got the big beach house in Portsea. He's got the cars. He's got the big house in Brighton, and so in my family, I have this kind of defined level of success in my family that exists, one type of success. And then you've got me, who's kind of like, I've just always followed my nose since I can remember. And, coming into this sector sort of 15 years ago, I remember like turning up to do the Masters in Philanthropy, 15 years ago when it first started in Australia. And some people were saying to me, oh my gosh, you're going to do a master's in stamp collecting. Why would you do a master's in stamp collecting? Because the notion of philanthropy was so sort of unheard of. People thought it was philately, which is stamp collecting. But I remember like people saying to me when I had come back from overseas, why would you go and spend this really important time of your life in social purpose? Why would you go and make all your money now in your 30s and 40s and 50s? And then if you make enough money, then come back in your 60s and 70s and do some good things for the world. And to me, that was just a really, really bizarre concept. I don't know if anyone else has had people say that to them. I think it's so important around finding your tribe in this sector, because when we work here, it's just not negotiable, is it? It's just not negotiable to do what we do. So this idea of success, I've had to kind of find my own way with that as well, because at times often it has been inferred, around the family dinner table around, well, what am I doing that is successful, when you've got this other old paradigm sort of wealth management firm and the houses and all the money that he could possibly want. I mean, my brother could have retired when he was 40. So, that's kind of what I live around. But one of my great friends and mentors in the sector, Jodie Wilmar, for those who know Jodie, incredible woman, if you get a chance to ever meet her. She's based in Gippsland. She runs a lovely little business called Happy Changemakers. And Jodie actually helped me years ago just sit down and do this activity on my ideal day. And it actually turned up in my ideal day what success was for me, and that was what did my absolute ideal day look like? Then I took it on and did my ideal week because I couldn't help myself. But I did my ideal week, and it was looking at my ideal day and my ideal week that it actually how I define success reflected straight back to me, just doing that activity. So, I think it's so unique and individual for everybody around what are their success measures. But if people aren't sure, that activity in itself is such a beautiful activity to do. Because if success for you is not starting work until 10 o'clock in the morning after you've been for a beach walk and a swim in the ocean and the kids are at school, like, hats off to you. Like, that's you living what success is for you, do you know? So I think how we get to define what that success means, to ourselves.
Yeah, I agree that being able to think about what success means to us means that then we're more likely to focus on that. So if we believe, yes, getting up for a run or doing some exercise or spending, an hour with the kids doing homework in the afternoon, if that is what we find important to us, that is what we will spend time doing. I remember once that we didn't have any, this was before kids, and we didn't have any animals either. And we were thinking about getting a cat. And I said, why would I honestly get a cat? Because I just don't have time for a cat. But we did get it. And then suddenly I found all this time that I was playing with this cat. And it's the same for kids as well. You kind of think, where do I fit kids into this world? And then suddenly you have a kid and you go, well, actually, I do have time. So you expand your world, or you focus your world on the things that you find important in life. And
yeah.
So if we think about what success means to us, and thank you so much for people sharing about, I'd love to hear more in the chat about what you think success is to you, because I think sharing that is really helpful. So I really like that idea. So tell me a little bit then, following on from that then, is that should our concept of success include the reflection on our values? Because values is, again, what drives us. When you talk to people, Julia, what do you say about values and the alignment with, because I can say success is, raising $1 million this year, or, earning $1 million, but I'm not going to achieve that. But, if that's my success, I'm not going to be fulfilled. Where if I look at my values and say, okay, what is success that is in line with my values, maybe I'll come up with a different answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I look at my parents, and one of their definitions of success, and something that they're really proud of and that they should be rightly proud of, is, my dad retired at like 55 or something like that, which I don't think was actually that great for his mental health personally. I think he got a lot of fulfillment from working. But that was one of their big things. So you can see there's a lot of financial success things in my family. And so sometimes that comes through. But to me, the idea of like retiring feels really weird, because I think I've just and a lot of people around me, a lot of people who are here today, even, lovely Kiralee, hi Kiralee on the call, we follow our nose, and we're kind of like following our nose through life and our intuition and using our skills and our superpowers in the next thing that turns up. And this idea of like retiring from that is like retiring from yourself. It's like, oh, I don't think I'm actually ever going to retire. I don't have a retirement strategy. I know that I'm going to be slower down the track and probably not have as much energy, but this idea of having this like real stop. So I think that how our values show up in how we define success, we are in a new paradigm. This whole pandemic has given us the chance to define all of that for ourselves, and not be sort of having to live around a set of family expectations, which can sometimes occur. Being able to be strong in that, I've got to be really strong in myself with my family, that my level of success and my values are different. My number one value, and a lot of the values I see in social entrepreneurs, is freedom. The freedom to be, the freedom to exist, the freedom to make choices and to say yes to things. Yes, I'm actually going to follow that, and I'm actually going to help with that, or I'm actually going to start that. I'm actually going to change that. And so I think that there's these unifying values for social entrepreneurs. I don't know if anyone resonates with freedom, but it's my number one value, and it's like, I feel like a bird with wings. And I always say to my husband, don't try and chop off my wings. Do you know what I mean? Like, I need to be able to fly. I need to be able to just be me in the world. And so the more we know what those values are, then we can say, well, this is what success is to me, and your definition for you and you and you is all fine, but for me it's this, and I feel real peace with that. Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And for us as entrepreneurs, and change makers, to support each other on that, and to actually really, whatever it is that someone else defines for them, like really show up and help them be true to that, not true to another construct that's not serving them. I think for us going away from today, to be able to sort of say, yeah, I'll do more of that. I'll do more of that. I'll turn up for people more on how they define success, and help them be true. Yeah, that would be incredible.
Julia, Leanne has put a really interesting comment in the chat, a reflection question, which is, what would you still doing if you won millions of dollars in the lottery? What would you still do despite having, the potential to retire or whatever? So let me throw that to you, Julia. If you won the lottery today and got the success that we all, the world often, talks about, which is the wealth, what would you still be doing in a week's time?
Well, I often get cranky with the universe that it hasn't allowed me to win lotto, to actually, put some real firepower and resources to what I see as possible with the organisation that I started and that I run. So I often get cranky at the universe because I go, why would you give it to those people over there when they just go and spend it on nothing, when there's all of us amazing changemakers?
That's me too.
Like, come on, like let it land over here. Let it land in what Kirali's doing with Dovetail. Let it land for Corin, what she's doing with Social Enterprise Australia. Like, let it land, so I get cranky sometimes at that. So I guess if there were more resources available, I think it would be incredible to, kind of really put some resources in behind what I see as possible and what I've been tinkering at really for the last 3 years, with the collective. So I think it's got real potential. So other than that, sometimes I say I don't really know what else I would do other than this. But I would really like to be a professional drummer. I know that sounds funny, but I'm really good at air drumming. I won't do it right now, but I'm really good at air drumming. So sometimes I think like I would see if I had what it took to be a professional drummer, a bit like Joan Jett, how she was a drummer in a band and a singer as well. And that's my secret kind of like, there you go, shared that with 20 people I don't know. But, I don't actually, I sometimes laughed over the last 3 years, like if the collective falls over, if it doesn't work, I don't know. I don't know what I would do next, because it's this showed up and I backed myself and I went, well, I'm going to back myself to do this thing. And I've just been backing myself in on this for the last 3 years. So I guess I would probably just back myself in on the next thing, or, go and take drumming lessons.
That's amazing. And a lot of people say to me, oh, if I had more time and money, I'd come and study. And I say, start now. Study can be in little chunks and it can be over time, but you get so much joy out of studying and you build a tribe around you through study. So sometimes it's just about, starting where you're at. Now I want to pick up on the drumming, right? Because somebody just said, Amy said drumming is actually very therapeutic, and it is, Amy. And I have to tell you this story that I was actually asked to go and do a workshop with a load of accountants. They were they worked in a health organisation, but they were all the accounts team, and there was about 50 of them, so it was a big one. And they asked me to come and do a team building exercise with them, and I was thinking, oh, what shall I do? Do you know what I ended up doing? I ended up doing drumming with them. And it was a big risk, right? These are accountants. And I thought, but they really wanted me to come in and talk about teamwork and how they were working together. And I just brought in one of these, it's not me, but I brought in an organization that brings all the drums, the bongo drums.
Yeah.
They told me it was one of the best ever workshops they'd had, because they spent the whole time just drumming and learning how to drum together, and the facilitator was amazing how he did that. And then we debriefed it, and I debriefed it with them. And so I just want to put that out there, that you can incorporate things that you love into your work, because there are, pockets of opportunity that you could say, that would bring me joy. So how do I make sure that I could, bring that into my life in some shape or form? So anyway, I had to share that because that was right. We are rapidly running out of time, Julia. And look, we've had amazing comments in the question in the chat box, but no real questions. Is there anyone that wants to ask Julia a question? Because I really don't want to hog all the questions. If there's any burning questions out there, does anybody want to ask Julia anything? Or I can ask a few more things, but I want you to feel free to ask Julia anything burning.
There's someone there, just while those questions are coming through, there's someone, I don't know if people have followed, there's an incredible woman, lots of incredible women, but someone who I follow intentionally and deliberately is Bernadette Black. I don't know if you know her, put your hand up, maybe if you do have heard of Bernadette Black. She founded Brave Foundation. She's based in Tasmania. She was Tasmanian of the Year. And she basically said it's unacceptable the way teenage parents are treated. And she has created the Brave Foundation, an incredible community of resources and support to help teenage parents still realize their potential. And this woman is phenomenal. And she is so very deliberate and intentional with values. And I just really encourage you to write down her name and just put her on your watch list, just watch what she does, because it's just very inspiring. And I think it's important that we have a few people that we don't yet know, and we can kind of just sort of watch what they do, because then it helps us, I think, be more true to ourselves. I've learned so much by watching Bernadette over the last 10 years. Yeah.
Look, we are actually coming to the end of 2021, Julia, and this is, we've talked a lot about reflection and thinking about who we're hanging out with, who we're watching, what are we thinking about success and values, and these are all incredibly important things for us to think about at the end of the year. But we also don't want to be only in a place of reflection. We also want to be in a place of goal planning and thinking about what next year might look like. Mm-hmm. So what are you encouraging particularly female entrepreneurs to do and think about as they get ready for 2022? And of course, in this day and age, we never know what it's going to look like. So it's very hard to make any concrete goals. But how are you supporting entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs to goal plan? What's your thoughts on that? Should we be planning at all in this day and age?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think I'm sort of like a bit of I love to plan and dream around what's possible. Also, I mean, for us to actually kind of achieve what we actually want to achieve, we actually have to have, clear goals around how we're going to get there. And Kiraleigh's here on the call, and I love hearing how Kiralee, amazing entrepreneur, talks about SMART goals, and we all probably have heard that. But I was recently in a training that Kiralee ran, and it was just really good to kind of reacquaint myself with the 5 letters in a SMART goal, because I sometimes leave a few out. So I think that's one really good way to sort of come back to, like, if you are setting some goals, make sure that they are SMART, and the A in that attainable, really sitting with whatever it is and just, is this attainable? I love the way that Kiralee kind of really anchors people into those ideas around setting goals. But I think there's a couple
I
of
just add,
yeah.
I'm going to cut in, Julia, because that's
Yeah.
such an important point. But I want to add that it's how is that attainable? Like, who do you need around you?
Yes.
To collaborate with to make that attainable. It doesn't always have to be attainable just by yourself. And I think we forget that, but we also do that really well as females. We know that there are people that we can connect with and make it attainable by creating a tribe or connections and relationships with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that I think if people are looking to into next year as well. This last 2 years, I think, has been very isolating for people. You know, one of the biggest things I get reflected back to me from people in small business and small enterprises is the sense of loneliness and isolation. So there's some amazing networks that you can be a part of and be a part of them deliberately, intentionally, and strategically, you know, to support your goals and for you to support others. You know, that whole coming back to that sense of reciprocity is so powerful. You know, coming back to Kirali, who's here on the call, you know, really has taught me a lot around that givers get, you know, that givers get concept and how we can bring that more and more into the DNA and the design of our organizations. We do it naturally, but sometimes we need to put structures and behaviors around it so it actually does, you know, ultimately we can get leverage by working with each other. So I think, you know, for next year, if like understanding what networks that you could be a part of to actually really help support and nurture you and really help and support and nurture the goals that you have for, you know, the mission and keeping those really separate, you know. But I guess probably a couple of things at the moment. I don't know if everyone else notices, it feels like this real frenzy at the moment as well. I think there's this a bit more frenzy than normal this time of the year. So I would really be suggesting, and I am suggesting to people that they really take time and carve out time to rest over summer and really ring fence that idea of what is rest for you, and then be able to drop into yourself over that time and reconnect with your why. I know this sounds very cliche, but this is what I'm so looking forward to doing for myself, because I know I need to recalibrate. I know that I'm a little bit off center at the moment on my why, and I know that I need to make some modifications. So I'm really looking forward to, and I'm encouraging other people to rest, reconnect, and then recalibrate, because there's probably a couple of things that I need to do that get me back on sort of center with my own why. Yeah. And that might be how I turn up in my organization next year. I might be working on different parts of the organization so I can get back to my why. The other thing as well is I've started to sort of play with, and I'm really encouraging other people to play with some tools. A really great tool is this idea of the 90-day work plan. There's actually a book called 90-day, I think it's the 90-day year. Have a look at it. I've been working with Jodie Wilmar this year on how I might be able to bring that into my life. And it works really well a bit for me because I use the school holidays throughout the year as a bit of a energy bookends. So between the school holidays in term when Ollie's at school, I try and use that time for sort of high energy activities for the organisation that I run. And then when I get to the school holidays, we might still have activities related to the collective, but I don't have meetings. So the 2 weeks of those school holidays, I wind back with the team and I wind back with external meetings, and I use that time there to conserve my energy. And then next year, we're going to use that time more to sort of have more time for reflection in the organisation, reflect on the last sort of 90 days and what we achieved as a team, but also sort of like setting what the next 90-day looks like. It's a really beautiful concept, I think, especially to allow yourself that ebb and flow. And so you're not feeling like you're always on sprint mode. And I think, I look around and see a lot of people that are constantly on sprint. So, I think there's some really beautiful tools out there that that we can bring in, and maybe that's some summer reading for people as well, the 90-day work year, to actually bring some of those ideas in to help with that balance, help with those boundaries, help with where some of those goals sit. It's been really great for me. It's taking time for me to bring it in and use it, but I can feel that within maybe a year or two, that'll be become a bit of a default way of working, which I kind of feel quite excited about.
Yeah, I love the idea that, reflection is embedded in our life as an important way to ensure that we don't burn out. And also that concept of ebb and flow, that you don't have to feel like you're on sprint the whole time. That isn't good for us, and it isn't good for the people around you. I can assure you, it's not good for my family when I'm on sprint the whole time. So I love those tips and that wisdom, Julia, that you've shared there, that the ebb and flow is good for you. And keep reflecting, use that as an opportunity to think about, where am I centered right now? What is my purpose? What is my why? Who are the people around me? Do I have the people around me that are helping me achieve and feel that I'm in my flow? I just love all that stuff. Thank you so much, Julia. We have rapidly run out of time, and I know that I could definitely continue talking to you for a few more hours, because I just love this reflection on, who are we as women, as entrepreneurs, mothers, daughters, and all the other hats that we wear. How do we make sure that we end 2021 strong and feeling all of those things that you said at the beginning, how you feel when you think about you working at your best, and how do we make sure that we go into 2022 focused on that. That is what we need to feel throughout the year to ensure our health and well-being. Health and well-being is everything, folks. We cannot achieve our goals. We cannot achieve the social change that we'd love to see in the world unless we're healthy and we have well-being within ourselves and our families. So I just want to can everybody give Julia a thanks for sharing her thoughts today. Thank you so much, Julia. And I know that you're going to, in the blog, I'm going to put a blog up today, and you're going to share a little bit about things that people can contribute to in terms of their planning. I know you've got a couple of sessions that you said maybe people would like to know about.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. We do have Jodie Wilmar, who I was talking about before, is actually running a lunchtime session for our community early Feb. So I'll give you the link to share with everybody, and, really happy to invite everyone to come along as my guest to that. She's just got some beautiful tools that will really help, help you for next year. So yeah, thank you for these lovely messages too in the chat box. It's so nice.
Thank you for letting us know what we can tap into. Yeah. That's fantastic. So I'll send it out. And also the TEDx talk that I was talking about at the beginning about Ikigai, if you want to learn more about that, is by Tim Tamashiro. I'll put that in the blog as well. There's a heap of resources from people who are a lot better understanding Ikigai than me, but I think again it's really a useful framework to be able to reflect on at the end of the year. So thank you, everybody. I want to let you know that I am going to be sending out a survey sometime, I don't know when, just to get your feedback about Tea and Buns this year. We know that people have been coming all year, some of you, and some of you have just joined us for the first time, and that's fantastic. But at the end of the year, I like to just do a couple of questions that said, what did you enjoy about Tea and Buns, and what would you like to see next year? I already have the speaker who's going to come and talk to us in February, which will be our first one. And I don't know whether to spoil the surprise, but it's really going to be helpful in terms of systems thinking. We're doing a lot of that at the moment, thinking about, our programs and our services. How successful can they be? And do we need to have this kind of systems thinking perspective? It's so intriguing and interesting at the moment that that I've snapped up someone to come and share their thoughts with us about that. So, but if you have any other thoughts about people that you'd like to come and have a chat with, please do let me know. Also, well, that's it. I just want to say have an amazing summer holiday. Take some festive time with family and friends wherever you are. If you can get away and actually take some time to not, because all I've done all year is staycations, and I'd really love to get somewhere soon. I have booked my flights to Sydney in February to the FIA conference. I have done it with optimism and hope that I am going to be in Sydney for the FIA conference. So maybe any of you who are going down for that, we will connect, and maybe we can have tea and buns one evening at the FIA conference. That would be fun, wouldn't it? So thank you, and go about your day with joy and purposefulness and just a sense of you've got this, okay? And love to reconnect in the new year. If any of you are thinking of studying next year, of course, we do have enrolment starting shortly. We'd love to see some of you come and study at ACPNS, so please connect with us. We have a whole new master's program. We've reconfigured everything about the master's program. So if you're interested in that and want to know more, please send me an email. See you, everybody.